Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So the 2024 election is 27 days away. We are knocking on the door. Early voting has begun across many states, and it's going to be starting in many states as well very soon. And we understand that this election likely is going to come down to these 7 states right here. And we also know that Kamala Harris does not exactly have the momentum. She's kind of falling behind in the betting markets, which again are relatively volatile. You know, people buy shares, they sell shares, but it kind of does showcase momentum over time. But the polling as well. And the polling that we've seen lately shows that Donald Trump, he is currently in a good position in the battlegrounds. And you could go back to, even before the debate, or you could go back to after the DNC, Kamala Harris led on average in the battleground states by 0.5%, which obviously was not very much, and that was like her honeymoon. Now Donald Trump leads by 0.3%. I mean, these are very close races, but keep in mind, the polls typically underestimate Donald Trump. If you compare him on October 9th, 2024, which is today, to October 9, 2020 or 2016, he's in a phenomenal position. And he has taken the lead in every single swing state except for 2. And those 2 are Wisconsin, which again, polls have underestimated him in Wisconsin by an average of how many points? Over 6%, both election cycles. And he's down in Nevada by 1.1%, which again, that state has never voted for Donald Trump, but still there are reasons to believe that polls may be underestimating him this time around, especially because those, low propensity voters who the polls typically have missed in the past, they used to be more Democrat, now they're more Republican. It's also why Donald Trump outran the polls in Nevada, depending on the aggregate you look at back in 2020. But you see what's going on across these swing states, and we have polls out of Quinnipiac, which we have made fun of relentlessly for being one of the most liberal pollsters in the entire country. And they were very inaccurate because they underestimated Trump, and they really don't know how to pull the Rust Belt. But we have new polling from Quinnipiac out of the Rust Belt states, and it's not looking good for Kamala Harris. And we're going to get to that, but first, really quickly, I got to tell you guys about my merch store, shop.redeaglepolitics.com. It's time for the election. You want to support the channel and get something in return, I recommend you buy the merchandise that we have, or at least check it out on the site. You can buy one, get one, 20% off for a limited time on all t-shirts, tank tops, and mugs, and we have free shipping on orders above $50 if you're ordering it in the United States. We have great designs. We got the America First design, the Red Eagle Politics design. We have the Trump iconic bullet design and the corresponding mug, which I love. You got the design on the front and you got the inspirational quote in the back. It's my favorite mug. Everything's high quality. I recommend you guys check it out at shop.redeaglepolitics.com. The link will be in the description and pinned comment down below. But the election map here, what are the polls showing? They're showing Donald Trump is in a good position in North Carolina, in Georgia, and Arizona. He's been leading those 3 states for quite some time. And those are states that were either in Donald Trump's column in 2020 or decided by 0.3 percentage points. And when you look at the polling, he leads in Georgia and Arizona by 1.5 points, give or take. And in North Carolina, he leads by 0.6%, although polls in North Carolina, they have underestimated Trump. That's kind of the thing. You look at this day in history, October 9, 2020, Biden led by 2, Hillary Clinton led by 3. She lost by like 3.5. So we'll see what happens. It's possible, people are talking about the hurricane and how it's going to affect turnout. We don't really know quite yet. It might cause lower turnout, but those turning out very well could be those people that are angry about the hurricane response, and Donald Trump could gain on net because of it. There's a lot of moving parts to that. But the bottom line is that those 3 states, Donald Trump seems to be relatively confident in. They're shoring up in his column, it seems, which means that the Rust Belt's crucial because you can't win if you just get Nevada. Now, you could thank Nebraska's state legislature for being spineless because 269 would be enough to get him the victory. And Nevada is an easy state to flip if you focus on it, just because the amount of raw votes you have to, flip to win the state, it's not very many of them. But we'll leave it in the toss-up column for right now. We haven't seen a lot of polling out of Nevada anyways recently. There was a poll that had him up by 1, then there was a poll that had him down by 1 that was released. But again, it's been like 10 days since we've had any data come out of the state. But Quinnipiac dropped some polls, which again, this is huge. Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. He's up by 4 percentage points in Michigan. That is absolutely huge, given the fact that Michigan was one of the states in 2020 that was the most liberal out of those 7 swing states. Wisconsin, the polls usually underestimate him there, and the fact that he currently leads at all is a horrific sign for Kamala Harris, and he's at 49%. Now, Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania, she has the luxury of getting the upper hand in that poll. But guys, keep in mind, the last poll they put out of Pennsylvania, she led by 6. And we could look at this here. You want to compare the polling to the last Quinnipiac poll that we saw out of Pennsylvania. Sure, she led by 5 in the head-to-head. She led by 6 in the multi-candidate race. So already a 3-point swing into Donald Trump's column. She was at 51. Now she's at 49. And once again, they really don't know how to pull the Rust Belt. Because if you look at 2020 and you look at Quinnipiac then, they were off big time. Their final poll had Biden up by 7. That was off by 6 points. Their second to last poll had Biden up by 8 points. And then the previous poll, which would be the same poll at the same point in time, had Biden up by 13 points, had him up 54 to 41. Now Kamala Harris leads just 49 to 47. That is absolutely insane. When you look at the massive shift, it's a liberal pollster and Trump is still within the margin of error. And then you look at Wisconsin. You could look at Quinnipiac's previous poll in Wisconsin. Harris led by 1. That was like a good poll because there was a Quinnipiac poll back in, I think, June that had Biden pre-debate up on Trump by like 6. So then Harris leads by just 1, and then Trump leads by 2. He's got the momentum in Quinnipiac. The liberal pollster is showing a more pro-Trump result than Trafalgar, of all polls, is currently showing, which they've been a little cautious this cycle for sure. And then Michigan, did Quinnipiac even release? They did release a poll back in September where Harris led by 5 percentage points. Now Donald Trump leads by 4. That's a little lofty. But can Donald Trump win Michigan? Well, it's not the only poll to show that. He leads the Mitchell Research poll. He leads Trafalgar's poll. He leads Atlas Intel, which is one of the most accurate pollsters in 2020. And the New York Times, which has also really struggled to pull the Rust Belt, has her up by just 1 percentage point. So when you look at all of this, it's like, okay, the Democrats have to rely on polls from like Morning Compost, which are trash, that show Harris still within the margin of error, and then Cook Political Report, emphasis on Cook in terms of their polls. 416 likely voters is kind of a pretty low sample size, all things considered. That doesn't really seem like they put a lot of time and effort. They have a more liberal audience as well that subscribes to their, polling. Is it possible that their polls are going to be released when they're more favorable to Harris? It's possible, but regardless, throw it in the average anyways. Let's be real here. I don't know if Trump's going to carry Michigan by 4, but you see the shifts from 2020. I don't even know if Quinnipiac put out a poll in Michigan in 2020, but the one thing that it shows is that even these liberal pollsters, they're showing that Kamala Harris is in dire straits, and the more time that she spends in front of the media, she wouldn't do media for a while. She was riding the honeymoon high, and now she's forced to do media because it's, she knows it's not enough, and that's why she wants another debate with Trump, because she really didn't win the first one, and we know that. But when you talk about her appearances in front of the media, they're just not very good. They show that she's not fit to be president. And people are mad that Donald Trump said that she's like, kind of a little dim-witted. And they say, how can he say that? It's like, okay, you people call him a felon, you call him all sorts of names for 9 years, and he's not allowed to make a objectively correct observation. Like, I don't know what's up with these people, man. But one thing I will say is you look in the crosstabs of these polls, because the one thing I did notice is Pennsylvania is not going to be 6 points to the left of Michigan. There is virtually no way that's the case. In fact, I think Pennsylvania, when it's all said and done, could be to the right of Michigan. It probably could be in line with the state of Wisconsin. But I did notice something about the Pennsylvania poll, which I found interesting, is that usually the polls have underestimated Trump's margins with white college-educated voters. But this poll shows Donald Trump up 64-34, which is kind of my expectation. If you want to look at Pennsylvania, in 2020, Trump won these voters 60-39. And Joe Biden did have a lot of, appeal compared to somebody like a Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris, at least back then with those voters, because they were familiar with them. You had a lot of, suburban voters that are white working class. COVID was a bigger issue then, and it wasn't a winning issue for Trump, and it's kind of off the table. The economy's back. It's front and center. Those voters are struggling the most with inflation. They're the most opposed to this mass immigration that we're seeing here. It's very possible Trump could gain a sizable chunk of the vote, which would only be 5% of the white non-college vote. And when you look at like these Teamsters polls where the members actually answer the polls, which they're more likely to answer the polls of the Teamsters, their own union, than polls from like these university polling firms or whatever, they show a vast shift into Donald Trump's column. And he definitely has a special place in a lot of those voters' hearts. And John Fetterman, the Democrat senator of Pennsylvania, was the one that said that, not me, because of the Butler incident. So it's very likely that he does gain substantially with that demographic. I don't know, 64, even if he gets to like 63, that would be absolutely huge. But Kamala Harris, San Francisco Kamala or Scranton Joe, use your common sense. That's true. But the white college vote is interesting because Donald Trump won about 45% of that demographic in Pennsylvania in 2020, which was not a good year for him. And this poll basically shows that 23% of two-time Trump voters that are white and with a college degree would be backing Kamala Harris. I don't believe that's true. Maybe you could make a case for about like 8 or 9% of that demographic. You could make that case, but not 22, 23%. Absolutely not. I just can't see that happening. And, in terms of the crosstab diving, I don't like crosstab diving. But when you have a disparity in the polling dump that we see, looking into the crosstabs is the first thing you probably want to do. But, second of all, it's important to understand that when one crosstab is off but the others make sense, then it could be that you did something wrong as a pollster. And when you see Kamala Harris winning seniors by 12, maybe you're overrepresenting some of these liberal, seniors with a college degree. And that's why you're kind of arriving at that conclusion, especially because a lot of these people are difficult to reach by polling to a certain degree. So when you look at that, it's like, yeah, maybe the polls are missing something. Because when you put all the data in the swingometer, that's kind of like the one area where it's like, okay, yeah, Donald Trump is doing better than that. He may not be doing as well as 2020, but he doesn't need to win. But you look at Michigan, it's more, in line with what you would expect, all things considered. You look at the white college vote, it only went down by 7. So maybe there's a little, give and take with that. And you could even make the opposite case that this poll in Michigan, at least, is overestimating Trump with minority voters, which could be true. It possibly could be. And I don't know if he's up by 4 in Michigan. It's going to be a very close state, but can he win it? Absolutely. And then Wisconsin's numbers tend to look probably, in terms of by demography, relatively what you would expect. I think he might do a little bit better than that with white working class voters in Wisconsin. The white college vote is probably about where you would expect. And I think that in terms of the minority vote, they kind of are overestimating him a little bit, but it kind of does cancel out all things considered, and he will make gains. So the bottom line is that this is a good polling dump for Trump. And when you look at the polls in Michigan, he's winning Michigan right now. He was down by an average of 7 points the last 2 cycles in Michigan. You look at Wisconsin, it's neck and neck, and we know the polls in Wisconsin miss those voters. And when you look at the state of Pennsylvania, Hillary Clinton led by 9.4% this day in history. Donald Trump leads by 0.2%. That is a big turnaround for Donald Trump. He's at 49% in Arizona. In Georgia, he's above 49%. And he's coming close to that in some of these other states, which is absolutely huge because, that's kind of the magic number. If he gets 49 point something, he's going to win these states because there will be a third party vote, especially in Michigan with the, anti-Harris vote from the Palestine crowd. That could, cause a dent in her margin there as well. And might be enough to possibly give the state to Donald Trump in and of itself, but there's a lot of moving parts to it. So we'll see what happens. But like I said, the Rust Belt is huge because Donald Trump likely just needs one state. It could be Wisconsin. It could be Michigan. I think Michigan's probably the most liberal of those 3, not saying he can't win it, or Pennsylvania. where Trump's campaign seems confident. Trump's doing 2 rallies there today. And the Harris campaign, behind closed doors, not all that confident in Pennsylvania. And the mail-in request data is not looking good for Democrats. I'm not saying that they can't win the state, but guys, Donald Trump is favored. He's favored in pretty much every swing state. We just need to go out there and make sure we get as many ballots in the ballot box by Election Day. Regardless of what you expect to happen, vote like your life depends on it, please. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below. Comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. And I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.